Hello, IT enthusiasts. Happy Friday. We made it to Friday. We made it to the end of the week. Let's pat ourselves on the back. Welcome to my computer careers show, Get Into IT, where we do just that. We get into all things IT. And today's topic, as you guys can see from wherever you are watching, we're talking about practical tips to navigate your military transition. A very important topic. First and foremost, before I get too far into my introduction here, again, welcome. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Friday to hang out with us. And as always, we've got both Aaron and Caitlin monitoring chat today. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to put those in there. But also, these live shows, if you guys don't know, do stay up all the time. So if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, you can still go back and watch previous shows. And we recommend doing that. We have some great topics. I can't remember the number exactly, but man, we've had a lot of live shows and they've all been wonderful conversations. So if you want to go back and check out any of those, and if you have any comments afterwards, after this live show has ended, we will still see those. So please, if you have any questions for the guest hosts, for us, anything of that nature, please go ahead and give them put your comment in and we will still see it. So let's get into it. So if you've turned into this broadcast, like I was just mentioning, at any point over the last 2 years, so it's at least been 2 years. That's amazing. The subject of today's chat might sound familiar. We try and incorporate this as often as we can. And it's an incredibly important topic and certainly interests many students and grads that transition into a rewarding career. And here we go, Rick. Rick, thank you so much for hanging out as always. Thank you for joining in. I'm sure you've got comments, and listen, I'm always down to hear them. Thanks for tuning in as always, Rick. We appreciate it. So we are lucky enough this week to be joined by someone who is an expert on this topic, who lives the mission over at clearancejobs.com. I love that. And that person is Katie Helbling. Thank you so much, Katie, for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Oh, so happy to be here. Always happy to talk about the military transition.
Love it. Love it. I was going to go ahead and get into your introduction, but thank you so much for joining us today, because I love this. Content marketing manager. Okay. Marketing fanatic. You're going to fit right in. We appreciate that. I'm sure we could pick your brain at times here in the marketing team. Marketing fanatic that enjoys anything digital, communications, promotions, and events. And you have 10 plus years in the DoD supporting multiple contractors with recruitment strategy, staffing, augmentation, marketing, and communications. I love that. Thank you so much, Katie. All right.
Yes.
Let's see. Let's go ahead and get into these questions. Are you ready to chat military transition?
So ready. Always.
Not a new topic for you.
No. The Clearance Jobs audience, for your viewers who might not be familiar, we're online networking platforms specific for
actually broke up for me. I don't know if that's just me. My Wi-Fi might have just gone out. Can you guys still see me, hear me? Can you guys see Katie? Let's see. Oh, there you are. Is it me? I'm sorry. I'm getting notifications that my Wi-Fi is all messy.
Patricia, we can hear you.
Me.
We can hear you. It seems Katie's lagging just a bit right now.
Okay. So that's the second time that's done that, though, where you started lagging, but it was telling me that my Wi-Fi was the problem. So I apologize.
Sure.
Oh, no.
Are we all there?
You're there, and then all of a sudden you're not. So I apologize. You want to try? See, and it did it again.
I was gonna say, if you all can hear me fine, it may be the video just taking up my bandwidth. Though I did a podcast this morning and everything seemed okay.
Interesting. Yeah, that's the second time that's done that, where we broke up connection, but for some reason it was telling me that my Wi-Fi was a problem, which has been the case this entire week. I've lost Wi-Fi like 4 times. Anyway, if you want to try without the video, tell us about Clearance Jobs again, like what you were just saying. We'll see if that works.
Yeah, sure. Online networking platform specific for job seekers that have an active security clearance, anything from a public trust up to a TS/SCI with some sort of poly. So if you're active duty, if you gained a security clearance through the military, or if you just have a security clearance, not necessarily through the military, through a government agency or another contractor, You can create a free profile, network on our site, come to our networking events, both virtual and in person. But naturally, a lot of our audience is going to include those who have gone or are about to go through the military transition. So love this topic.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. We'll definitely be sharing that link so people can hop on that because that's a great opportunity. And that did work. So you guys, fortunately, just to get my face today. Just joking. So I do want to talk about, there was 2 articles that we wanted to dive in within this discussion today. And I know Aaron has the link for both of those. If you don't, I can also locate it really quick. But you outline what's titled 5 Keys to a Smooth Military Transition. And you talk a lot in this article about those 5 things, but could you expand on why you emphasize, thank you, Aaron, emphasize starting the planning process, you actually say 24 months out. And what are those specific steps that should be taken in those early months? Because 24 months, I mean, that's a large amount of time. The 24 months is interesting. So walk me through that and specific steps that should be taken in those early months.
Yeah, sure. I mean, honestly, 24 months might sound like overkill at first, but trust me, it really gives you breathing room. A lot of folks who have spent their careers, sometimes decades in the military, I mean, 24 months is honestly a drop in the bucket when it comes to a really big life transition. And so 24 months really can allow you time to explore your options and not scramble for them. So in those early months, it's smart to start mapping out your goals, thinking like what you want to actually do. Where do you want to live? What lifestyle are you aiming for? What's important for both you personally, and then of course for your family and fur babies and children and everyone else involved in your life who is honestly going through this transition with you as well. So you can begin researching roles, building out your clearance jobs profile, even dipping your toes into certifications or, figuring out if you need to upskill, get new certifications or go to school if you're heading into maybe a different career field like IT or cybersecurity. Maybe your MOS in the military was not something that transitions or translate well into what is sort of in demand in the civilian world these days. So again, that 24 months just gives you a good chunk of time to kind of get ready and feel situated and set yourself up for success.
That makes complete sense. And yeah, you're speaking our language here. You're talking about upskilling, talking about certifications. We love to hear it. So that makes complete sense. Definitely plan out what you want to do. I see that a lot in articles too, where people are talking about this, career changes and like, here, let's figure out where we can go from where you're at first. And that could take up to 24 months. So that makes sense. That completely makes sense. And you also mentioned that resumes shouldn't be read like after action reports. Resumes can be kind of tedious at times. I feel like we're constantly evolving with how resumes should look, but you're saying that they shouldn't read like after action reports. Could you give us some examples of how to transform military achievements into civilian friendly language, particularly when describing quantifiable results? How do you translate that?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm probably going to contradict myself here a bit. I feel like it really depends on the industry that you're applying to. So if you're applying to the cleared space where there are military customers, government customers who are working with, military or DoD components, I think having military jargon in your resume is absolutely totally fine. And sometimes necessary because recruiters, when they are trying to source candidates, they're using Boolean search terms that are likely acronyms that you've used in the military. Right. So the big caveat being like, they shouldn't read like after action reports, but you also need to think about the industry that you're applying to. And if it makes sense to include some of that jargon. So but if you're, again, applying outside of the cleared industry and something that maybe has nothing to do with the military and you're interested in something completely different in terms of career change, instead of saying something like led a platoon of 30 soldiers in operations in support of OEF, you could do something like managed and trained 30-person team in high pressure environments, resulting in 100% mission readiness. So that still essentially talks about what you did, but it's not talking about like, those acronyms that might not make sense to a recruiter working in the commercial or private space. So focusing on leadership, logistics, risk management, like some of those terms, and again, those measurable outcomes, you'll hear that with a lot of recruiters that you ask about resume advice. So thinking of different things like reduced downtime by 40%, cut response times, streamlined training protocols, and then using those numbers in your resume because those pop as well.
Great to point out as well. Yeah, that makes complete sense, and that definitely helps. You help translate it a lot for me as well, right there when you're talking about that. That makes sense. So in your article too, you discuss several veteran support organizations, which are always super important. We try to highlight those all the time. And you mentioned Hire Heroes USA and MOAA. Which resources have you seen provide the most practical value for transitioning to IT professionals? Among those, are there more or?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I wish I could do my video because I'm wearing my Vet SOS podcast shirt. That's a really great podcast to follow because they talk about sort of the sea of goodwill. Like there are just too many resources to sift through when it comes to the military transition and veteran service organizations. There's a lot of really great ones, but it's a lot to sift through.
Right.
So Hire Heroes USA is solid. They have really great coaches and they also have really great resume resources. Another one, DoD SkillBridge is another sort of sleeper hit. So interning at a company during your final stretch in uniform, that allows you to get to know an organization. And a lot of the times, DoD SkillBridge interns, so to speak, they get an offer from that organization. So it sets you up with a job. And then, whether you like that job or not, you can work there for a little bit, but it also sets you up with a place to make further connections after post-transition. Another one you mentioned, the MOA, Military Officer Association of America. That one is fantastic. We attend their events every month. Usually do some sort of webinar with them talking about the military transition. They offer just a ton of great resources, not only for the service member, but also for the military family, so military spouses as well. And then, of course, I have to plug clearance jobs. We do, for active duty service members who might have a security clearance, we do military transition boot camps every quarter. So you can access those if you have an account on clearance jobs. And we talk about that timeline. We talk about actual like tactical things that you should be doing the 24 months out, that 18 months out, that 12 months out. So it really allows you to kind of create a task list that is a little easier to digest. Okay, this is what I should be doing at this point in the timeline. And then, of course, we have our networking events as well. I think, even if you are at that 24 months out, it's important to attend those just so you can start to practice your elevator pitch. And, I go to events every month and someone will come up to our booth or to me or whatnot and just kind of stand there and not know what to say. And there's just nothing more awkward. So going to those events, it really allows you to practice and start to get comfortable because it is daunting and really help you to build that confidence.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also wanted to point out, Rick did say, hey, Katie, thanks for talking to us. But he also, going back to our other question too, just about that translating to resume, how some of the things you do in the military, how do you nicely convey this, type of thing to a manager? So definitely understand how that could be tricky there, Rick, for sure. Unless you had a specific question within that one, that's kind of what I was getting from it. If you have anything else, Rick, of course, put it in there. We'll touch on it, but definitely a great question. So head on over there if you guys would like to, the clearance jobs. And I did see Erin did post that podcast for us in the comments as well. So if you guys would like to see that, you can head on over to Stories of Service, the SOS podcast that she was just mentioning. All right, let's see. And then I said MOAA, but you said it was MOA. Okay, make sure that I get that correct. So your recent piece about recruiting email subject lines suggests that cleared professionals are often passive candidates, which I thought was interesting. Could you explain what this means and how it affects job search strategy for transitioning service members?
Sure. A passive candidate is someone who really isn't actively job hunting, but would move for the right gig if they heard it. So most cleared professionals actually fall into this category. They're happily working, but recruiters are still trying to lure them away from their current job. So for transitioning service members, what this means is you don't need to blast out 200 applications. You need to build a profile. You need to highlight your clearance. You need to let opportunities come to you. Take a look at job opportunities and kind of mirror your profile to those job requisitions, so you can be found by recruiters. Clearance Jobs does a lot of that matchmaking behind the scenes for you, but again, instead of blasting out 200 so applications, if there's a good opportunity that you're really interested in, have like a nice tailored application and spend time on that and the follow-up, but otherwise focus on building like a great profile.
Got it. Okay. And I to piggyback off of that, you're talking about security cleared professionals, and you mentioned that they're highly motivated by mission stability and trust. How can veterans evaluate potential employers to ensure they'll find that same sense of purpose after that transition?
Yeah, I think really just looking beyond the paycheck, reading company reviews on things like Glassdoor, or Clearance Jobs has a couple of forums. You can check out clearancejobsblog.com or fedwork.net. Those are both user-generated content forums. So looking at, what is being said about companies, look at companies' mission statements and ask thoughtful questions during interviews. So stuff like, how does your team measure success, or what kind of mentorship and development programs do you offer, will tell you a lot. Why is this position open? Is it a backfill? Why did that person leave? You're not just looking for a job, you're looking for a team and a mission that you believe in. So I think adding those steps to your process can really help there.
Absolutely. What were those two websites again, if you don't mind?
Yeah, clearancejobsblog.com.
Okay.
That's more on like security clearance questions, but we have background investigators and adjudicators that will answer any questions that you have. And then fedwork.net, that's kind of our newest venture. That is both for cleared and uncleared professionals. Likewise as clearancejobsblog.com. You don't have to have a clearance to create an account on that one either, but that's more geared towards federal work, federal policy updates. I mean, sort of kind of spurred from the federal shakeup that we saw earlier this year. So that's just another great place to access information.
10-4. All right, got it. And thank you for clarifying, Rick. Oh, I'm sorry, Bruce, I saw your question. You said, I'm hearing some noise about video resumes. And at first when I read that, you were like, I'm hearing some noise. And I'm like, I'm not. Where are you hearing noise? Like, what's happening behind me? Sorry, I'm hearing some noise about video resumes. Okay, is this a thing, good or bad? This is actually kind of newer to me. I have not seen as much chatter about this. Have you, Katie? Is this something that is becoming more popular?
I have not. That's really interesting. I'm going to have to look that up later.
Yeah,
but
me too.
I mean, maybe outside of my industry, video resumes, I mean, Silicon Valley seems to do cool, innovative stuff. Maybe that's their thing.
Yeah.
I still work with the government, who is boring and old school. So,
Well, I mean, I've heard a lot about AI interviews and stuff too. I mean, that is becoming more popular, but yeah, sorry. I thought Bruce was hearing some ghosts in my room that I wasn't. This would have been a really interesting live show if that were the case. But also I want to go back to, we're just talking about jobs, and obviously we're talking about federal work and whatnot, and that actually goes nicely into our next question. It was especially with fedwork.net that we were mentioning, but your article also mentions that many veterans actually don't immediately want a traditional 9-to-5 job, going right into the 9-to-5 job space. That's typically not it doesn't seem like it's a go-to for a lot of veterans. So what alternative career paths have you seen work well for those transitioning service members?
Sure. I mean, I think this is just kind of generally we're seeing this with workers in 2025 today. But so many veterans want flexibility, especially after years of deployments and rigid schedules. So there are some good options. So you can do contract work, especially in IT or logistics. Freelancing or consulting is another not a bad gig. I actually have freelanced on the side. It does allow for that flexibility. You do have to kind of build your own client base. Likewise with entrepreneurship. But again, if you're looking for something outside that 9 to 5, those can be some really great options. In the government contracting space, you can actually find 1099 roles on clearancejobs.com. And then you can also find remote security clearance required gigs. Most of them are actually going to be hybrid. So it's going to require some component of going on government site. But you get the idea. The key is just kind of knowing what lifestyle fits your own goals. And there's definitely an option out there for you.
That makes sense. Okay. Yeah, hybrid work is very popular these days. Very popular. A lot of people I know do hybrid work.
Yeah, I mean, I work from home 100. Well, I say 100%, but I travel like once a month, and that fits my lifestyle. It allows me to spend time with my family, travel. So yeah, it's about answering those important questions for yourself, and it's important to get those answered before you talk to a recruiter or a hiring manager.
That makes sense. I'm going to skip over optimistic Aaron says it'll work. Katie, if you would like to put your camera back on, let's see if it's working for this next couple questions. Let's try it. All right. Aaron, optimistic Aaron, that we like to hear it. So hopefully this works. I do want to talk about the job market. And the job market is a tough one to navigate with many folks potentially vying for similar gigs. What makes a veteran's application stand out among the flood of recruiters and opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, I think having a clean resume, one that reads well, one that is tailored for each application that you're putting out. Don't make an assumption that a recruiter is going to know that you did something. If it's a requirement in the job listing, make sure it's reflected in your resume. Having those results-oriented bullet points, including some of those measurable, like quantifiable things that I referenced earlier. And then I think when it comes to, again, tailoring the application, but also the follow-up is so critical right now. In my space, the market is very saturated. There's a lot of passive networking, people throwing out applications, maybe not necessarily like movement and people pulling the trigger when it comes to signing offers, but with all of that movement happening, making sure that you're following up. And if you want your application to be seen, you need to follow up with the recruiter, the hiring manager. You need to be following the company. You need to be engaging, especially since all of this is kind of happening online. You need to, again, follow up and refer. So referrals help a lot. And, finding somebody that you know at the company, I think can also just put you in a good position to at least move forward with like a phone screen or an interview.
Makes sense. Okay, but I'm glad you said that because I do want to piggyback.
Hopefully you got all that. How's the video doing?
It did, yes. It did work. I did want to piggyback off of what you were just saying here and kind of take a step back. Oh, you want to go camera off? Okay, well, that worked. Did it not work fine? It worked fine for me. Okay, all right. I do want to piggyback off of that and talk about, I guess this is a couple steps prior to the actual resume and the recruiter and everything. And I want to talk about networking because you were also mentioning how that is incredibly important as well, briefly there. So let's dive into that. And you do mention in your articles how networking doesn't always come naturally to veterans. And I've heard this frequently. Could you share some specific strategies for connecting with cleared recruiters and industry professionals that veterans can take note of?
Yeah, I mean, networking is really freaking weird. But starting small, I think reaching out to other veterans on platforms like LinkedIn is a really great networking platform. I think if you're specifically looking for cleared jobs, obviously I'm going to say clearance jobs, because that's more geared towards, career related content and job opportunities. LinkedIn is more, you'll get the the real estate agents or financial advisors or just people talking about their journey and posting content about their wedding anniversaries. I don't know. But reaching out to other veterans on LinkedIn can really be really great. Hey, I saw your background and I'm transitioning soon. I would like to hear about your experience. And then kind of building off that, joining the virtual job fairs or industry events, even if you're just kind of there to listen and be a sponge. Follow up with messages afterwards for any connections that you met. And then I think just being explicit with recruiters. I always say be clear, concise, don't waste time. Reach out if you're interested in getting a job. Say, hey, recruiter, I applied to this position, requisition number, yada, yada. This is how I meet the requirements. I want to set up a phone screen. So being clear and concise, and if you have a question, just ask it. Don't reach out and say, hey, can I ask you a question? Just do it. Just being explicit and just realizing everybody's busy. Being thoughtful and strategic in your approach there.
That's great. That's great advice. Awesome. That makes a lot of sense too. I mean, we hear a lot about networking on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's the place to do it. And you also, in the articles, write about the value of connecting on those trusted platforms like LinkedIn. Could you explain the role of platforms like clearance jobs in the military to civilian transition process? I know you've touched on it briefly, but to really drive it home, how can clearance jobs really help that type of connection?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's a place for LinkedIn, but clearance jobs is built for security cleared professionals. So you're not getting a lot of the junk that you might get on LinkedIn, but also the nefarious actors or bad actors that you might be getting on LinkedIn as well. Because not every recruiter or hiring manager that has an account on our site is vetted. They are doing work with the federal government. They are verified. So you're just not another resume in a sea of applicants. So employers on clearance jobs are specifically looking for people like you who might have a security clearance. And that means fewer irrelevant job offers, more mission aligned roles, and really a community that understands the transition experience. And so, of course, you can choose what information you share, which is super important in this space when it comes to security.
That makes complete sense. And on top of that, one of my last questions here before we wrap up was the emphasis and the importance of discretion and professionalism in these connections and in these spaces, whether it be LinkedIn or clearance jobs, however you want to do it. What are the key do's and don'ts for veterans when discussing their military experience and clearance status during those networking opportunities and even in the interview process too?
Oh, you may have broke up there a little bit.
Did I? Oh, my apologies.
It looks like the do's and don'ts for vets when discussing military experience and clearance and interviews. Great question. And we get that one all the time. So I think being discreet is important. You can mention clearance level on your resume for sure. A lot of recruiters, if they see, you were a 35F in the Army, they're going to understand that you likely have a TS/SCI clearance. I think the main thing is don't overshare about missions or classified work, obviously. Any special access programs should definitely not be on your LinkedIn profile or your resume. Assume that, if you're going to be on a public-facing platform like LinkedIn, just assume that there are going to be bad actors. So I would just be cautious about certain things that you share on there. Like I said, everybody on clearance jobs is vetted. Our resume database is closed. It is not open to the general public. That being said, you still should not be listing special access programs on your clearance jobs profile either, in my opinion. But I think just being cautious, but understanding that, like I said, recruiters see, and I said you shouldn't make assumptions that recruiters should be able to read in between the lines. But so, like with everything in the security clearance space, it just depends. I don't know.
It does. And it, like you said, too, it depends on the job. It depends on exactly who you're having the conversations with. So, is that like a conversation you can have with your recruiter? Like, is this okay if I say this? Like, is it okay if I mention this? Can I put this on my clearance jobs page? Like, is that just a conversation that you should be having?
Well, I mean, it really depends on your background. So, for example, if you supported NSA in any capacity, they're going to make you put your resume through pre-publication review anyway. So they kind of tell you what you can share. If you, I mean, you can pull any military occupational specialty code or AF, whatever the equivalent is for other branches. You can pull that from the service websites and list that on your resume, and that's not a big deal. So yeah, I would say just be cautious and then ask a supervisor if you're really worried about something.
Got it. Okay, so you can definitely ask those questions. All right. Well, that is pretty much all the questions that I had for you, Katie. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. This was a great half hour, but I do want you to plug anything that we did not mention, or let's talk about, the importance of clearance jobs. Anything else you would like to add for us?
I mean, thank you so much for inviting me to be on y'all's show. Sorry about the tech difficulties. My computer really wants to have Friday off, I guess. But everybody, if you have a security clearance, head on over to clearancejobs.com, create a profile today. If you don't have a clearance, you can still search our jobs if you're looking to get sponsored. We have a ton of really great content over at news.clearancejobs.com. That's an excellent website to subscribe to. You can see subscribe in the top right corner. We have a couple of newsletters, one related to career advice within the cleared space, another related to security clearance topics, and then a couple of student newsletters as well that I would highly recommend everybody be a part of. And then connect with me if you have any questions on navigating the military transition, navigating the cleared space, or I don't know, just want to say hi, feel free to do so. You can find me on the internet, I'm sure, or you can email me at katie.helbling@clearancejobs.com.
Katie.Helbling. All right. At clearancejobs.com. We will make sure to put that in there. All right. Katie, thank you so much for hanging out with us. I do apologize, yes, for the technical difficulties on my end as well. I guess I got to do the old unplug the router, plug it back in. I don't know what's going on, but it's been off and on all week. It's really been a frustrating week. So again, also, I guess my technology's just been ready for Friday since the week started. So we will get that going. Thank you so much, everybody, for hanging out and your questions. We really appreciate them. And we will be back next Friday. Thank you, Katie. Yes, big time. Thank you, Katie. And thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. We always appreciate your time on Friday. Have a safe weekend. It's going to be hot. Pretty much anywhere you are, it's going to be hot. So please be safe. Drink your water. And we will be back next week. Katie, if you don't mind hanging out just for a little bit while I hit end stream. And again, these stay up on our socials. So if you guys have any questions for Katie after the fact, we will be here. We will be looking. And of course, like Katie said, you can connect with her on the socials. So thanks, everybody.